Hello, my name is Tara King, and for my poetry project, I decided to do Shel Silverstein. And so I'm just going to share with you my screen so that I can do my presentation on him real quick like. Okay, so this is Shel Silverstein, and he was born September 25th, 1930, and he died May 10th, 1999. Fun fact is my son was born on May 10th, 2011, so it's kind of neat to know that they have something in common. Anyway, so Shel Silverstein not only was a children's book author, he was also a cartoonist, playwright, poet, a performer, recording artist, and Grammy-winning, Oscar-nominated screenwriter. His books, he also illustrated himself, every single one of them. His unique imagination and bold brand of humor is beloved by many adults and children throughout the whole world. And again, I told you my son was born on May 10th. Mr. Silverstein passed away the same day in 1999. I found that to be a pretty awesome fact because I like to relate people my personal life sometimes. This is some of his work, his books. The Giving Tree, it was one of his most popular books. For my read aloud, I'm going to do a giraffe and a half because that's just one of the funny books, and I have it, so it worked out great. And then these two, The Missing Piece and The Missing Piece Meets the Big O. Carried on to his work was Where the Sidewalk Ends in 1974. Michigan's Young Readers Award winner was for that book. A Light in the Attic, recipient of the School Library Journal Best Book Award in 1982. Falling Up, Don't Bump the Glump, which was originally published in 1963 and reissued in 2008. Running Babbitt is a posthumous poetry collection of spoonerism, was conceived and completed before his death. He wrote songs for some major famous people and groups. He wrote the cover of the Rolling Stones, recorded by Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, and A Boy Named Sue and Queen of the Silver Dollar, that was written for Johnny Cash. These are some of his poems. This one's my favorite, When I'm Gone. When I'm gone, what will you do? Will you write and draw? Who will write and draw for you? Someone smarter, someone new, someone better? Maybe you. I just thought that one was neat. This one's really good. It's pretty long, but it's good. And then Dirty Face, that's good. Where did you get such a dirty face, my darling dirty-faced child? I got it from crawling along in the dirt and biting 2 buttons off Jeremy's shirt. I got it from chewing the roots off of a rose and digging for clams in the yard with my nose. I got it from peeking into a dark cave and painting myself like a Navajo brave. I got it from playing with coal in the bin and singing my name in cement with my chin. I got it from rolling around on a rug and giving the horrible dog a big hug. I got it from finding a lost silver mine and eating sweet blackberries right off the vine. I got it from ice cream and wrestling and tears, and from having more fun than you've had in years. So that one was some of his poems. Some things about his life. He lived alone for most of his life. He moved around a lot. He did have a lot of women come and stay with him sometimes. He lost his first wife and their young daughter to cancer. He died not only of 1 heart attack, but 2 minutes apart from each other. He grew up in the west side of Chicago in a poor neighborhood. And after World War 2, he joined the army and served in the occupation of Japan. He learned to speak Japanese sufficiently just to amuse himself and started drawing cartoons for Stars and Stripes, which is the army newspaper. After he was out of the war, he worked in Chicago as a mailman until his cartoons took off and he was hired by the famous Hugh Hefner. That part kind of made me laugh a little bit because, cartoons, Hugh Hefner, and then children's books. His cartoons became on one of Playboy's hallmarks. After that, he branched out into children's books. The book he wrote, The Giving Tree, was number 1 on the New York Times bestseller for 3 years, which is the book I was telling you about earlier. In the 1950s Chicago, he was asked to write a song for both Bob Gibson and Bob Camp. He had never written a song before then, and he ended up with 3 songs on their Gate of Horn album, the best in that area. Excuse me. After that, he went on to Nashville and wrote for Johnny Cash, A Boy Named Sue, The Unicorn, Sylvia's Mother, and many, many more. This is a photo that was taken by Alice Och. I guess, I don't know. But anyway, this is a photo that was taken by him. He looks super happy there. And then my works cited page. So that was my presentation to you for this assignment. I also wanted to say that my activity for my read aloud, which my read aloud is a giraffe and a half, but my activity for that is going to have the kiddos make up their own little rhymes, like non-sentence phrases to go into their own book. And then each child will have their own illustration, and each child will have their own phrase to add to our book. And when our book is complete, each child will have their own book to take home for a keepsake for years to come. Because I know the best gifts that I ever had was the gifts that my children gave me that they handmade in school. And then after our books are done, we're going to get out the clay, and together we're going to build our very own giraffe and a half. So for my read along, or my read aloud, I am going to read you A Giraffe and a Half, and it is by Shel Silverstein. It's also illustrated by him because, like I said in my presentation, he illustrated all of his books. So here we go. I'm super excited. I love this book. It's so funny. If I had a giraffe, and he stretched another half, you would have a giraffe and a half. If he put on a hat and inside lived a rat, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat. If you dressed him in a suit and he looked very cute, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit. If you glued a rose on the tip of his nose, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. If a bumblebee old bee stung him right on the knee, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his knees and a bee. With a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee. If he put on a shoe and then stepped in some glue, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe. Little cartoons are funny. If you gave him a flute and he played tooty toot, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute. If he used a chair to comb his hair, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair. That's just silly. If he tripped on a snake who was eating some cake, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake. If he found an old trunk and inside was a skunk, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk. This is just getting silly. My kids love this book. Let's see what happens. If he met a fat dragon who sat in a wagon, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in his suit, with a rose on his nose and and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in the trunk and a dragon in a wagon. If he jumped on a bike and rode over a spike, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit, with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair, and a snake eating cake, and a skunk in a trunk, and a dragon in a wagon, and a spike in his bike. If a blubbery whale got a hold of his tail, you would have a giraffe and a half, and a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee, and some glue on his shoe, playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair, and a snake eating cake, and a skunk in a trunk, and a dragon in a wagon, and a spike on his bike, and a whale on his tail. If he fell in a hole that was dug by a mole, you would have a giraffe and a half, with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose in his nose, and a bee on his knee, and some glue in his shoe, playing toot on a flute, with a chair in his hair, and a snake eating cake, and a skunk in a trunk, and a dragon in a wagon, and a spike in his bike, and a whale on his tail, in a hole with a mole. But if you brought him a pole to climb out of the hole, and the whale left his tail and went off the mail, and he gave the spiked bike to a scout on a hike, and he left the fat dragon 'cause his wagon was sagging. And he gave his chair to a tired old bear, and he traded the flute with a bird for some fruit. And he told that old snake to go jump in the lake, and a man who brought junk bought the trunk with the skunk. And he gave the rose to a girl he chose, while the bee on his knee flew away with a flea. And he put on the shoe with the glue on you. And that silly old rat ran away with his hat. And he put his suit in the laundry chute, and he shrank another half. You would have a giraffe. A giraffe and a half. By Shel Silverstein. I hope you enjoyed the read along today and my presentation on Shel Silverstein. He was an amazing guy and he had so much accomplishments, and I really enjoyed finding more things about him. Thank you.